Hey, what's up, people? Today I have a little bit of a different kind of video for you guys. I want to take a look at the Spyderco product guide of 2022. I know a couple of other people have done this already on YouTube. I didn't watch any of those videos though, so I can give you as much of my own thoughts as possible. And I'm gonna tell you right away, there are not a lot of new things in the catalog. Most of the stuff is quite old, not quite old, but a couple of years old. And yeah, usually Spyderco releases new stuff as they go. But I have also picked out all the new things, and I'm going to show you those who are not in the catalog yet as well. And yeah, I'm basically, most of the time, I'm going to talk about the old stuff of Spyderco. Things I like, things I find interesting, and yeah, just things that basically what I want to say is I'm gonna go on a full nerd rage and completely nerd out about Spyderco. So if you're a Spyderco fanboy or fangirl, welcome to this video. If you're not, what are you doing here? No, just kidding. You can stay and maybe you will start to like Spyderco after this video. I knew when I was getting into Spydercos, I found them very weird. Most of them looked quite off with their blade to handle ratio and kind of ugly. And yeah, the beauty of Spydercos can only be seen if you start using them and if you, yeah, see how beautiful they actually cut. Now, with that being said, I also want to say Spyderco is probably my most favorite folding knife brand at the moment. I carry, most of the time I carry Spydercos or Cold Steels if I carry folders, and yeah, I just like them quite a bit. I think they do a lot of stuff differently, and it will take another 10 years for most people to realize how good Spyderco actually is, I believe. But yeah, so let's just start. I also wanted to say, and then we start, I also wanted to mention that I probably split this video up into like 3 or 4 videos, so it's not going to get too long. If my voice sounds a little bit like I have a cold, I actually do have a cold, and I can't speak that long. So yeah, it's easier for me, and it's also easier to upload, and also easier to watch for you guys. So yeah, let's just jump into it. The Endura Delica series has been around for a really long time. I personally sold my Delica at some point and picked up the Endura, which I like more because I like the larger knives. And now I'm actually at the point where I'm saying I might actually pick up another Delica with a different steel. Now, what I think is really good with Spyderco is they have the VG10 since forever. Spyderco's VG10 is kind of on the softer side, but it takes a beautiful edge and sharpens up really nice and easily. And it's kind of for a steel that forgives you a lot of things that you do with it. And so these are basically their workhorses. And then they have the same knives, the Delica and Endura, in CDP 189, which is basically a stainless steel, a really stainless steel that cuts for a long time. It's a little bit harder, so it's a good alternative to VG10. And what I find even better than CDP 189 is that Spyderco has put K390 on the market, not just as a sprint run, but to be in their lineup permanently, which I think is really, really great. K390, for those people that don't know, is a carbon powdered steels. Most powdered steels in the last couple of years were all stainless steel, so they had a high chromium amount, and yeah, most of them were not too tough at the edge. As well, we can see that with S30V, although S30V has gotten much better in the past couple of years. S30V, I think, has been around for 20 years now, so a lot of things have changed with heat treatment and everything. But we see with a lot of the powdered stainless steels that they're not particularly tough. And the cool thing with the carbon powdered steels is, like with K390, but K390 also has a shit ton of vanadium, excuse my language there, has a ton of vanadium in it as well. So K390 is a steel that really goes for edge retention, but also it's really tough at the edge. I have a straight spine in K390. We'll come to this later. and I think it's just a beautiful steel. And if you're not afraid of rust, which this is not a steel that crazily rusts on you unless it's like summer and really humid, always depending of where you live, of course. You get a couple of rust sprinkles all over the blade. But I really started to not be afraid of rust anymore and really started to enjoy my carbon steel blades in the last couple of years. I think carbon steels are just beautiful. And yeah, K390 is no exception. And I think for the price that Spyderco offers, the K390 Endura and Delica, here is the Delica, which is like 20 euros up price from the VG10 ones. I think you just get a ton more performance with these. Although, like I said, I love my VG10 blades. I think they definitely have their place on the market. But yeah, K390, beautiful things in the Spyderco lineup right in the beginning. Did we skip something? This is all old stuff. You have seen the Endura probably 1,000 times now. The Endura and the Warncliffe blade has been released last year. It comes on a plain edge or a serrated edge. I don't really see a reason to buy it. This would make probably a good self-defense knife. For utility though, I would prefer myself the Delica with the Warncliffe blade. And I actually, like I mentioned before, I might even pick up another Delica. And this time, I'm probably going for the Warncliffe full serrated. And I would like to see it in K390 because they also, as you can see, made the K390 version in a full serrated blade, which I have never tried out a steel this hard with serrations. Might be interesting because serrations are difficult to resharpen, and why not get it in a harder steel? So it does take you even longer before you actually have to resharpen it. Yeah, so that was my thought process there. Not sure if this makes sense to you guys, but I hope it does. So yeah, the Delica Warncliffe, I think, is a beautiful utility knife. They started making the Andela, which is not in the catalog yet. The Andela Warncliffe was announced very recently. Comes out in VG10, probably in the sooner or later also in K390, I guess. I'm not sure about that though. So yeah, we have the Andela in the Warncliffe, plain edge and serrated. And then the Endura and Delica in the Warncliffes. Can tell you right away, Spyderco is doing a lot of the Warncliffes this year. They started to do this last year, I think, and this year they are even doing more Warncliffes. So apparently they sell well. With the Endura, like I said, for self-defense, Warncliffe, great. But for normal use, I would always prefer the standard blade shape from the Endura because where do we have it? The Endura has already that slightly dropped tip, and it's kind of a sheepsfoot blade. And I think with a sheepsfoot, you can use much more of the entire cutting edge than with a Warncliffe. I think with a Warncliffe, you're always only cutting really with this tip. And this has nothing to do with the serrations. Even if this was a plain edge, I think most of the time, you're just going to use the tip. And the tip is very precise on a Warncliffe, but I think a sheepsfoot for the larger blades just is more utilitarian, makes more sense overall, is a better all-rounder blade shape, I think. And yeah, so I would always prefer the normal blade shape of the Endura. With the Delica, however, I do like the normal blade shape. I had one in the past, like I said, but I can really see myself using the smaller blade of the Delica as a utility knife. Yeah. And then the Andela kind of falls in between Endura and Delica. And you can see the sizes here, by the way. I'm not sure if I really like those in-between sized knives. I have realized with my stretch that I kind of still gravitate towards the larger blades. I like the full 4 inches, the 10 centimeter blades. I think you get more cutting edge, and therefore you can cut with a longer path and cut more things in less time. And I think a little bit more reach is sometimes also quite useful. At this point, we are completely nerding out if you haven't realized that. But yeah, I do think for the people that like those in-between sizes, the Andela is great. I personally, I'm not too big of a fan of the in-between sizes. I either carry a small knife as a secondary and then a larger knife for the larger tasks, or either just carry a larger knife at its own. So yeah. This series is kind of cool as well. Kind of interesting, I should say. Not sure if I find it cool yet, but it is interesting for sure. The Thin Red Line series and the Thin Blue Line series. Spyderco released that to support certain organizations. You can see that down here if you're interested. So basically they're supporting, what do they support? Veterans and police officers, and with the Red Line series, they're supporting the wild firefighters, so wildland firefighters. So I think this is a really good thing. Maybe you have noticed that wildfires have become kind of a thing in the last couple of years. In my country, we had one just a couple of months ago, a really big one. It was quite devastating, and it's horrible to see something like that. And I really think it's a good thing that the organizations that Spyderco usually support with series like this. Yeah, I think they could do much worse on their part. So shout out to them for doing this. And the interesting thing about the Thin Blue Line series and the Thin Red Line series is that they are all partially serrated except the Rescue 3 model, which partially serrations seem to have a comeback. I really thought partially serrations were almost dead, and now 2022 seems to be the year of comebacks. Also, we have seen quite a few companies doing the partially serrations in 2021 again. CBB, Benchmade, just to mention a couple of them. So I don't know. They seem to have a comeback. I'm not sure how to feel about that. I think for the people that like it, it's good. I don't want most of my knives to be in partially serrations. I think I don't even have a partially serrated blade at this point. I only have full serrated or full plain edge. Yeah. And I would really like to see a company making a knife where the plain edge is in the back, so right here. So you can get the finer cutting tasks or the feather sticks or whatever you do done with the plain edge, and then the serrations in the front. So basically swap this out. It would be a really interesting thing to see a company do that. And some of you might be screaming right now, hey, Victorinox has already done that. And yeah, that's true. Victorinox has done that. I think I even have a knife that has that. So actually, no, I do actually own a partially serrated blade. I kind of forgot about that for a second. But yeah, Victorinox has done that. But I would like to see companies like Spyderco or Benchmade or other big companies to do the serrations basically swapped, so that the front is serrated and the back is plain edge. I think this would be a really interesting thing. So apart from that, this series is not anything new. These are all Endura Delicas and Andelas of the FRN bidirectional handle scales and VG10 blades. And the only thing different also is that they have either a red backspacer and red liners, and or a blue backspacer and blue liners. So maybe you can see it here in this little picture, that the inside of the handle scales is either blue or red, excuse me. Yeah. Apart from that, nothing really too new there. Yeah, let's continue. Spyderco Police is an absolute really nice knife. I wish they would still make it in G10, and they don't. They only have the FRN models, which I do like the FRN handle scales from Spyderco because of their bidirectional texturing. I just wish they would feel a little bit more higher quality, just a little bit. Yeah, and that's my only complaint. My favorite police model of all the polices that have been out, at least from the shape, was the where do I have it here? The Police 3 in G10 handle scales, because different to all the other police models that came out before it or after it, the Police 3 actually had a swedge. You can see it right here, and we have a better picture here. So it had a swedge from the end of the Spyderco opening hole all the way to the tip, which is something super nice. I do like myself having a nice swedge on a blade. I think it's a very beautiful thing. And yeah, I would wish Spyderco would be bringing out the police with a swedge again, and maybe with G10 again. Probably they might even do that in a sprint run, but yeah, I want to see this in their lineup again. I think the police with G10 is just a beautiful thing. But at least they give you K390, which as an option, which again is a great steel, especially for the longer blades. I think steels that have a lot of edge retention go well together with longer edges, longer blades. I think you get the most potential out of the steel in a blade like this. So this is a 11 centimeter blade, which is 4.38 of an inch, 4.38 inches. Yeah, so it's a beautiful size for a beautiful steel. Yeah, here's the stretch. Like I mentioned before, I do own the stretch in K390. Again, another in-between size. What I really thought was interesting when I got my stretch is that if I take my stretch with the straight spine and hold it up next to my Spyderco PM2, they almost have the same blade, except that the stretch has this belly in the front here, which the PM2 doesn't have. The PM2 has more of a straight line towards the tip, and the stretch has a little bit of belly. So I think this is a great addition to this blade shape. It gives you a little bit more slicing power. And what's also different from the stretch to something like the Andela, which would be the same size, is that the handle is, although it's very thin, in the back here it's a little bit wider. So it's thin this way if you look at it from the spine, but it's wide in this dimension here. So for people that have larger hands, this might feel really good, because the Endura Delica and Andela don't give you that much purchase on the grip because they're a little bit thinner this dimension, and the stretch is a little bit wider. So yeah, for people with meteor hands, this might be not a bad thing. One thing I want to mention is about the Spyderco blade lengths is, if it says that this is almost a 9 centimeter blade, it's actually an 8 centimeter blade, because you're losing an entire centimeter from the choils, basically, which is, it could be a good or a bad thing. I think it's part of the reason why Spyderco's blade to handle ratio is off so many times, because they do the big choils, and yeah, they don't let the handle be the handle. They continue the handle into the blade, which gives you a great purchase on the blade, and it gives you a lot of control over the cutting edge. But I think you also lose a lot of cutting edge, which is kind of a bad thing. So yeah, there's good and bad things with everything. It was really interesting to see that Spyderco also Spyderco also released a Stretch XL version this year. They don't have it in their catalog yet, but we can find it on their website. It looks like this. It's called the Spyderco Stretch Straight Spine XL. Lightweight, because it has the F1 handle scale like the Stretch always used to have. Actually, that's not true. I think there was a G10 version of the Stretch at some point. And this one is 4 inches in the blade length. I believe, yes. 10 centimeters of blade length. And only 77 grams, 2.7 ounces. It seems a little bit lightweight for the size. I think this is not true. It's probably more like 90 grams, so a little bit over 3 ounces. I guess, I don't know it, but from the Spydercos I have had in the past, yeah, this would make a little bit more sense. So yeah, so the Stretch comes out with a larger blade. So again, if they say it's 4 inches, it's actually a little bit shorter. So it's probably going to be like a 9 centimeter blade, so 3.5 inches, because of the cutting choil. And yeah, so interesting stuff. I'm interested in the Stretch XL. I have to admit that. How does the Stretch XL fit in their lineup? I think the Stretch has this, with the straight spine, has a pointier tip. We don't see that pointier tip anymore in the Police series, for instance. The Police is slightly curved down, and also we have the Endura series, which is also slightly curved down at the tip. So I would say the Stretch with the straight spine in the XL version is kind of a Police lightweight with a backlog and yeah, F1 handle scale. So it's kind of a, excuse me, didn't want to say that. It's kind of a military. It's kind of a Spyderco military with a with a backlog and effort and handle scales. So it would fall right in between the military and the Endura and Police series, somewhere in between there. And I think it's it's probably a good addition to the lineup. I don't know if it's really necessary to do that, but yeah, it's cool. Larger blades are always good to see, in my opinion. Now, this is the original stretch, which is absolutely ugly. Actually, it's not the original. This is the stretch 2, but it has the original blade shape before they were starting to do the straight spine series. And I recently read a book about knife making in the 18 and 1900s. And what was very interesting to see is that there were a few knives in this book that had this exact blade shape. So sometimes I believe Spyderco does a lot more research on their blades and edges, as you may think. So yeah, I think this is a very traditional, great blade shape, but it looks absolutely ugly. And the straight spine stretch definitely looks more appealing to more people. So good thing for them to put the straight spine stretch in the lineup, I guess. Yeah, here we have the rock Chomper, which is basically the Andela handle. The stretch handle. I'm getting confused with all those Spyderco models here. The rock Chomper is basically the stretch handle without the choil, but it still has a smaller blade. So again, I'm not sure why they didn't make the blade a little bit longer, because that for sure could have fit a longer blade in this handle. But yeah, Spyderco, like, they're small blades sometimes. So yeah. So if you really like the stretch handle but don't like the choil, I guess the rock Chomper is good. And it's only available in a Warncliffe at this point, I think. And full serrated on plain edge. Yeah, the Spyderco Civilian and the Matriarch series. Basically, if you would want to have all those knives in one knife, there is a knife called the Cold Steel Black Talon 2, which the Black Talon wouldn't exist without Spyderco, because Spyderco I think they had a patent on this design. And yeah, the Civilian is a 4-inch blade with this very menacing looking, I'm not sure how to call this, with Talon blade, I guess. So we have a really nasty blade shape with a really precise tip and full serration. So this is for sure a self-defense knife. I mean, it could be used for utility as well, but we all know this is meant to be a self-defense knife. And the Matriarch is a little bit smaller. It's only 9 centimeters in blade length and has a wave feature and has the effort and handle scales. Now the Civilian has the G10 handle scales and the larger blade and no wave feature. And Cold Steel, when they asked Spyderco if they were nice enough to let them use this design, which they actually were, which is kind of cool from Spyderco, Cold Steel made the Black Talon 2. And I'm not even sure how the Black Talon 1 looked, but the Black Talon 2 has a full 4-inch or 10 centimeter blade with serrations and the wave feature in form of the Demco thumb stud opener, and it has G10 handle scales. It's very thin and lightweight, easy to carry. So yeah, it basically combines all the features of those knives with the addition of having, it used to have CTS XHP and now it has S45 steel. So basically it has a more higher wear resistant steel, and yeah, it's also a little bit lower priced than a Civilian, at least. I think the Matriarch is still more inexpensive, but harder to get than the Black Talon. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that I personally bought myself the Black Talon 2. I think it's basically all those knives combined in one. The only ugly thing about the Black Talon 2 is that it has a really shiny stainless clip, which these don't have. So yeah, tiny little detail there. Yeah, Spyderco Cricket and the Harpy. The Cricket is a really interesting one. Whenever I think about the Cricket, I also think about the Spyderco Dodo. Let me Google this really quick. Where do I have the Spyderco Dodo? The Spyderco Dodo looks like this. I think it's called Dodo. I'm not sure. Maybe it's pronounced differently, but yeah, this is also an interesting Spyderco. It has basically a ball lock and a really weird looking shape, both the handle and the blade. And whenever I think about the cricket, whenever I see the cricket, I think about the Dodo. So yeah, this one is discontinued by now though. It's only available in sprint runs like this Blade HQ exclusive here. But yeah, I wish they would bring this back. This looks like a really interesting knife. The cricket is always a little bit too expensive for me personally to buy, but I think it's really cool that this design even exists. I think it's just a nice looking little blade there. And it's hollow ground. Yeah, the hollow grind on this one doesn't run up too far, but at least it's hollow ground. Yeah, Spyderco Harpy has been around for a long time as well. The Spyderco Dragonfly is also old news. I really like the Dragonfly as well. They have come out with a Warncliffe Dragonfly. So again, like I said, Spyderco is really big on the Warncliffes this year. And yeah, also in K390. Not sure if serrations are available. Doesn't look like it yet. So yeah, Dragonfly and the Warncliffe. Me personally, I would still prefer the Dragonfly in their normal blade shape. Although the Warncliffe is kind of cool, I could see myself carrying it as a really lightweight. Look at the weight of the Dragonfly. As a really lightweight utility knife. Yeah, but the Dragonfly with the normal blade shape is really cool, and it has a nice wedge on the spine. So yeah, again, K390 versions available. In my opinion, the better versions than the VG10 ones. Yeah. What else do we have? These are all old. The Ladybugs. I think these man bugs are new now. Spyderco man bug with the Warncliffe blade, also in a full blacked out version. Yeah, and also black hardware as it seems. Looks really cool. Kind of cute. Kind of a cute little knife. Probably not gonna buy one. But this is like a really nice keychain knife, I guess. Or maybe also a good gift knife for your wife, for instance. Yeah. Now we are going to get in the Spyderco main lineup, basically. So we're not looking at the foreign Japanese-made knives anymore. The USA-made stuff is probably I'm gonna do that in the next episode. So this episode doesn't get too long. But yeah. There is a lot of nice stuff to look at here as well. So yeah, hopefully this episode wasn't too long. Hopefully you find it kind of interesting. I personally do. I really like Spyderco. And yeah, see you guys in the second part, I guess.